China's President Xi Jinping has told German Chancellor Olaf Scholz the two countries should work more closely in, quote, times of change and turmoil. Scholz arrived in Beijing on Friday for a one-day trip, becoming the first G7 leader to visit the country since the beginning of the COVID-19 pandemic. He's being accompanied by several CEOs of major German companies. The trip has proved controversial in the EU. The bloc has recently been more critical of China's human rights record, as well as its position on Taiwan. Critics say Scholz is undermining efforts to reduce German trade reliance on China. Last month, Scholz's administration pushed through a deal that allowed a Chinese company to buy a stake in a terminal at a major German port. To find out more about Scholz's trip to China, our reporter James Chater spoke to Barbara Pongratz, an associate analyst at the Merrick's Institute for China Studies based in Berlin.
Xi Jinping, during the meeting with Olaf Scholz, called on the German Chancellor to deepen ties with China at what he called a time of turmoil. Do you think that's something Olaf Scholz wants to do? And what are his limitations here?
Piece. He has published a piece on the Frankfurter Allgemeine Zeitung, a very one of the largest media outlets in Germany. And in this piece, he has basically put forward five thoughts he goes into the conversation with. And one of these thoughts were that we don't want to decouple from China. That's kind of also a move away from the US stance, because there have been definitely signs coming from the US towards decoupling. Diversification, I think, right now is the name of the game for the German economy. There's different voices from companies as well who are, for example, saying that they are coming up with diversification strategies, or also in conflict situations with Taiwan, for example, that there are definitely scenarios being developed to diversify.
Do you think other EU countries are now viewing Scholz as an obstacle to arriving at a more unified approach in Europe to China?
So, of course, there has been quite some controversy about the visit, as you said, because of the modalities, first of all. So there could have been better coordination with other EU partners, because the economic delegation he took along with him, there has been some critique about that. The timing and the modalities have been criticized, but no one has really spoken up saying that Scholz should not do the trip. The visit and the way it was planned has clearly put a wedge between France and Germany, for example, because cabinet talks between them were cancelled. The visit might have been a reason for that.
What do you think Scholz's trip means for those more sensitive issues for both Germany and also the European Union, like Taiwan?
On Taiwan, in his article, he says that he finds the situation around Taiwan worrying. In his fourth point, he says that he wants to address sensitive issues such as also human rights concerns or respect for political rights of ethnic minorities, for example. So I think it depends really on how he will raise these issues, even though it's still quite unclear how he wants to do that. Probably also looking back again to the government's coalition agreement, where the first time Taiwan was mentioned, where they put forward that any change in the status quo of the Taiwan Strait can only happen peacefully and in mutual agreement within the framework of the One China policy. He's going into these discussions, thinking about these issues, how he will raise them practically is really still open.